We're talking about credit on today. And do you know what makes up your credit score? Well, if you don't, we are going to be breaking down the 5 parts of your credit score and what each part consists of and why each part is important. So be sure to stay tuned. What's up out there to all of my fellow gold diggers? This is your girl Rita, also known as the self-proclaimed gold digger. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I am so glad to have you. But if you are a fellow gold digger, welcome back. Y'all know I love and I appreciate each and every one of you. Shout out to all of my new people. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. So if you are new, make sure you tell me hello in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. If you are an OG, an old gold digger who's been rocking with me for a long time, y'all can say hello as well in the comment section. So usually I'm coming to y'all on Tipsy Tuesday with a live video. A few weeks back, we did a credit series. I shared with y'all on one of the lives that I have since found out even more information regarding credit, and I wanted to share it with you, as well as get more into the parts of the credit score or some aspects of credit without it being such a long, lengthy video. So today's video, we're going to try and keep it really, really short, but go over the different parts of your credit score in hopes that this will help you improve your credit. Y'all know I am trying to improve my credit, get it even higher and everything. If you want more in-depth information regarding your credit, please be sure to check out those live Tipsy Tuesday videos that are posted on my channel, and we go a little bit more in depth or give a more comprehensive view about your credit score and why it's so important and the ways that you can change it. But today we are going to be solely focused on the 5 parts that make up your credit score. So the 5 parts I mentioned during the live is that you have your payment history that makes up the largest portion, which is 35%. Your credit utilization makes up 30%. The length of credit history is 15%. New credit is 10%, and the credit mix is 10%. Now, if you just took those first 3, the payment history, credit utilization, and the length of credit history, that is 80% of your credit score. And I told you on the live that we can literally control a large part of that. Okay, literally though, we can really control all of it, but definitely that first 80% you can definitely control. But since then, I have learned some additional information. So your credit score, in addition to these percentages that are used, these different parts, these 5 parts, are assigned a point system. So there are different points allocated to it. So your credit score, it ranges from 300 to 850. The 850 is the highest that you can have, and 300 is the lowest that you have. Now, they automatically give you 300 points, okay? So even if your credit is terrible, your score should not be below a 300, okay? Now, this is where the remaining 550 points come in. Payment history and how we get some of the percentages as well. So the payment history, you get 192.5 points. Credit utilization is 165 points. Your credit age is 82.5 points. Hard inquiries is 55 points, and credit mix is 55 points. So let's get into each of these 5 parts, okay? So first, let's start with payment history. It goes without saying that you need to make some on-time payments. You have to make on-time payments in order for you to have a good payment history. So if your payment is more than 30 days late, that will get reported to the different credit bureaus. So the credit bureaus are like Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. That is what gets reported to the credit bureaus, and that's what can affect your credit score. Now, we also talked about when it comes to your payment history, there is a difference from you being late with your creditor to when they actually report it. So in regards to credit cards, usually you have a certain due date that you need to pay your minimum statement balance, okay? If you don't pay your statement balance by that particular date, then you might incur a late fee. That does not necessarily mean that your payment is late enough for them to report it to the credit bureaus. It has to be 30 days late before they report it. So If you just have a late payment and it hasn't been, it hasn't been 30 days, try to pay that payment as soon as possible. As soon as you realize it's late, try to make that payment as soon as possible, because it might not have been reported to the credit bureaus just yet. And because if it gets reported to the credit bureaus, it takes 11 on-time payments just to erase that one late payment, okay? So know the difference between when it's late, you have a late payment that's being reported to the credit bureaus, versus when your credit card or your lender or whoever considers your payment late. Sometimes you might just be late with your lender or your credit card company, and they just assess you a fee, a late fee or whatever, but they haven't reported it to the credit bureaus because it hasn't been 30 days late, okay? So you don't want to mess up there. You want to make sure you make on-time payments, set up automatic payments if possible, so that you don't miss any payments and that doesn't affect it, because that is 35% of your credit score. It's just based on, you being on time. So don't be tardy. You want to be on time when it comes to the payments. Now, credit utilization, this is like how much credit are you using at any given time, okay? The ideal amount, they definitely want it below 30%. Ideally, you want it to be 10%. We also learned that usually if you are at 48%, I believe I'm saying that right, 48%, that is considered maxed out of your credit limit. So you want to keep it as low as possible, okay? Now, what we also discussed when it comes to your credit utilization, once again, this goes to when it's reported to your credit bureaus. And the only way you can control that is making sure you get your credit utilization below 10% before it is actually reported to the credit bureaus and everything. Your credit utilization is pretty much only based on your open credit cards. So please keep that in mind. It's based on your open credit cards. So I used an example. If you have a credit card that has $1,000 limit and you've charged $900 on your credit card or whatever, as long as you get that payment to $100 or less before it's reported to the credit bureaus, then they will only see it as you using 10% utilization of that credit card, even though during the month you had pretty much almost maxed it out to $900. So you have to get your balance below the credit utilization of 10% before it is reported to the credit bureaus. Usually they're reporting that to the credit bureaus during your statement date. So it's a difference between your payment date and your statement date. So you really want to look into that. If you want to get it down before your statement date, not your payment date. There is a difference, okay? So look at your credit card statements and see when is the payment date, and then also look at when is the statement date, okay? You want it to be 30%, but ideally, you really, really, really want it to be like 10% or less, okay? So that was, we talked about payment history, talked about credit utilization, and now we're going to talk about your length of credit history. So that's your credit age. Now, here's the thing when it comes to your credit age. Your credit age, this is very important. Your credit age is an average, okay? So if you have a student loan that's 20 years old and you have a credit card that is 5 years old, they are going to take the average of it, okay? So 20 plus 5 is 25. So your credit history, or the length of your credit history, is going to be 12 and a half years, okay? That is the length of your credit history. Now, if you end up paying off that student loan that you have, and now it's off of your credit report, guess what? And all you have is that credit card that is 5 years old, your credit age or your credit history now becomes 5 years versus that 12 and a half. And the credit history makes up 15%. So that's why sometimes when you pay off your loans, or if you got your loans forgiven, you might have seen your credit score drop. And the reason for that is because it's an average, okay? It's an average of all the accounts that you have, all right? So please be mindful of that, especially when it comes to closing any credit cards that you have. So even if you're not using a credit card, but you've had it for like years and years, like over 10 years or, however long, it doesn't really matter. If you had it for a long time, you might want to reconsider closing it because it will affect your credit history. All right. Next part of your credit score is the increase or new credit, I should say. So there are hard increase on your account whenever you apply for credit. Now, whether or not you get the credit or not, or whatever, or get the loan, those increase stay on your account, and that makes up 10% or 55 points of your credit score. So you want to be mindful of that. Now, the credit card inquiries do play a higher role on those increase versus installment loans. Installment loans are like your mortgage, your car loans, that kind of thing, because usually when you're shopping for a mortgage, they know you're going to be using different lenders. Same thing when it comes to getting a car loan. They usually are running your credit through different banks or lending institutions to see what you might qualify for. So usually when it comes to like your mortgage or a car loan, any inquiries that are made within a 2-week period are only considered one inquiry, or one hard inquiry against your credit score. Now, all those inquiries will appear on your credit report, but it doesn't affect it. It's all seen as one. Versus if you applied for a bunch of different credit cards, those are not grouped together. They are looked at as independent inquiries. So I hope that makes sense. So you don't want to have too many hard inquiries. Like if you're applying for credit, you definitely want to make sure you're going to get the credit. I know sometimes we don't know, so you don't want to have too many hard inquiries on your credit, especially if you're trying to do a big purchase like buy a house in the near future. Usually you don't want to open any new credit 6 months prior to doing so. Same thing applies when it comes to closing down any cards or anything like that. You want to make sure you're not closing any accounts at least 6 months prior to you like applying for a mortgage and things of that nature. Okay, so that is the new credit or hard inquiries. Now, the last and final thing that makes up your credit score, the other 10%, is your credit mix. So credit mix is looking at just, do you have a variety of different types of credit? Like, do you have installment loans? That's like your car loans, your mortgage. Installment loans is pretty much a loan for a fixed sum, and you pay a fixed amount each month. Like, it's not going to vary. Like, you're going to pay $500 a month each month for your for your car loan until it's paid off or whatever. Same thing when it comes to your mortgage. You're going to pay the set amount until you pay off your mortgage. So those are like the fixed installment loans. The credit card is a different type of loan. That is a revolving loan, meaning that amount fluctuates from month to month. Because like one month you might charge up $1,000, another month you might only charge up $500, that kind of thing. So the payment fluctuates. So they want to see if you have a good credit mix. Also, student loans is considered a different type of loan. It's still an installment loan, but it's looked at a little bit differently since it's backed by the government and things of that nature. So they want to look at your credit mix. Like, do you have a good variety of types of credit in your credit history? Do you have a car loan? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have some credit cards? Do you have student loans? They want to see a variety to kind of help boost your credit score. Okay, so y'all, that is the 5 parts of the credit score. Real quick, we're going to go over it. Your payment, the minimum credit score you can have is 300 points. So no matter how bad your credit is, you should at least have 300 points. The highest you can have is 850 points. But what that consists of is your payment history, which makes up 35%, and you just got to make on-time payments. You know, us being late, making late payments, it does not help us in any shape, form, or fashion. The other thing is, the next part, which makes up the next largest percent, is your credit utilization. That is 30%. How much credit are you using at any given time when it's reported to the credit bureau during a given month? Okay, you want to keep that credit, and this is mainly based on your open credit cards. So you want to keep your credit utilization on your credit cards less than 10% by the time it reports. So we talked about what that really means. Like, you don't necessarily, if you have $1,000, that doesn't mean you can only spend $100 each month. What it means is you can spend up to $1,000, but by the time it's reported to the credit bureaus, you need to make sure that balance is down to only $100. So it looks like you've only used 10%, okay? So please, please, please be mindful of that. So that's credit utilization, which is 30%. Next up was the length of credit history. That is 15%. And like we said, it is an average, okay? That is an average. I always say, think of it like your GPA at school. It's going to be an average of all the different types of credit you have. So if you close down an account, that is going to affect your average, especially if it's an old account. So think twice before closing down any old accounts. Next up was any credit increase or hard increase into your credit card, into your credit profile. That is when you're applying for new credit, and that makes up 10%. And lastly, the final component of it, which only makes up 10%, is seeing if you have a credit mix. They want to make sure you have a variety when it comes to your credit. They don't just want to see that you have like credit cards and stuff like that. They want to see, do you have installment loans? Do you also have revolving loans? Do you have like an auto loan? Those kinds of things, okay? All right, so those are your 5 parts of your credit score. Now that you know that, you know you can kind of manipulate stuff to kind of help your credit score go up and work in your favor. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Let me know in the comment section if it has and if you learned something from this. All right. This is Rita the Gold Digger, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone.